evening and welcome to the January membership meeting of the Cuyahoga County Progressive Caucus. My name is Steve Holecko. I'm the political director of the organization. And before we get started with our program, want to explain something that we found through almost 2 years now, or maybe more than 2 years of Zoom meetings. And that is putting links and stuff in the chat is not good because people start looking at the chat and then they're not looking at the meeting and they're trying to listen. So what we do is we will send an email out tomorrow with all of the items that I'm going to talk about here at the beginning of the meeting. So just listen for a minute and don't expect that you have to remember it all, because you're going to get an email tomorrow with this information. The email is going to start off with "thank you for coming," that type of thing. And then it's going to have 3 links. The first one is going to be to join the Cuyahoga County Progressive Caucus. We found that at a lot of our meetings, people come and they're not members and they're not getting our emails. But since they came, they might be interested in getting our emails. So if you're not a CCPC member, and click the link, become a member of the Progressive Caucus. It goes right to our website. Look at all that we do, which is everything progressive. And you'll start getting our emails and seeing, what's coming up in the future. And membership is free. So, this is not something, well, I don't want to pay dues, that type of thing. There's also going to be a link to donate to the Cuyahoga County Progressive Caucus. We are all volunteer funded, all volunteer staffed, and we depend on small contributions from folks like you to keep the office running and to keep, our servers and whatever we have to pay for bills. So if you can give a small donation, that would be greatly appreciated. Also, there's going to be a link to the video of this meeting. And the email is going out to people who either registered or came to the meeting. And we had 48 register, but there's not 48 here. The folks who registered might be interested in seeing the video of the meeting. And maybe you might be interested in going back in case you want to, catch something that you didn't hear correctly, or, something like that. We found, interestingly, that after like a month, we've had, and we don't know how much of the video people watch, but we usually get 100 to 200 people that have looked at the video after the meeting. So, and that might explain why some people who were interested don't show up, because they know that they can look at the video, but that's okay. There is also going to be a message, one for Clevelanders and one for folks who live in the suburbs. For Clevelanders, there's going to be a number for you to call, and that is the number of Cleveland City Hall. And that is to ask, and after the program, you'll understand why, if the only thing you saw is labor issues in Cleveland, we're asking Cleveland residents to call this number and urge the city to negotiate fair contracts with the workers who still don't have a contract. Negotiations began way back at the beginning of last year, and they're supposed to be completed by now, but you're going to hear why they aren't in a few minutes. And, it might be nice if and this will be in the email tomorrow, if you mention that you would prefer a fair contract negotiated if you're a City of Cleveland resident, because you might prefer that your garbage get picked up, and when the next big snow comes, that your streets get plowed, because that's basically what's at stake here. For those of you that live in the suburbs, there's going to be a thing that says, are you planning on running for office next year? We are right now in the process of recruiting candidates for the municipal elections. Now, with the exception of Ward 11 in Cleveland, all of the action next year is going to be in the suburbs. And so we're looking for progressives to run for city council, maybe to run for mayor. But I read an article a couple days ago about how important it is for progressives to run for school board because of what the right wing is trying to do with curriculum. So, if we could get some progressive school board candidates, that would be excellent. And in that section, there's a link to our run for office section on our website, which kind of gives some nuts and bolts on this. And if you're like, well, I'm not sure if I want to run for office, I've never done it before, we can walk you through all the steps and all that you have to do. In fact, we're thinking of having some candidate training forums as we move forward. And finally, in the email tomorrow, an invitation and a description of a big event for our organization coming up on January 20th. And it is the 7th anniversary celebration fundraiser. Now, although we titled it as a fundraiser, if you read the event description, it very clearly says, if you can't make a contribution right now, please come for the celebration anyways. But we are kind of celebrating our 7th anniversary because next Monday, January 9th, is the first time the office that we now occupy on 11910 Detroit Avenue in Lakewood was opened. On January 9th, 2016, it was the Bernie Sanders campaign office, the first one in Ohio, all volunteer funded, all volunteer staff. And so the Bernie Sanders campaign in 2016 was kind of the launching of our organization, because after Bernie got out of the race in the summer of 2016, the folks that were running the Sanders campaign decided, hey, there's no progressive organization in Cuyahoga County, so let's become the Cuyahoga County Progressive Caucus. So if you can make that January 20th event, that would be great. And the location and time and everything will be in the email that we send tomorrow. Next, I want to introduce our tech person, Deb Klein, to kind of explain, how we're running the tech tonight.
Good evening, everyone. As for those of you that have been to our meetings in the past, we have everyone on mute. When it comes time at the end for questions for our presenters, you can either put the question in the chat. You can do that as people are speaking, and I'll be watching that and can ask those questions later on. Or if you want to ask the question yourself, you can raise your hand, but you need to use the reactions. There's a button down at the bottom of your screen that says reactions. If you do the up arrow, there's a feature there that says raise hand, and that's what you want to do because it puts you up in the queue, and I can watch those. So everybody enjoy the meeting tonight. Remember, use the reactions, raise hand, or put your question in the chat. Steve?
So our first speaker really is not tied in to the labor problems in Cleveland, but our friends from SPAN, Ohio asked for a few minutes at the beginning of the meeting. For those of you who don't know what SPAN, Ohio is, SPAN stands for Single Payer Action Network. And what SPAN is advocating for is a single payer healthcare system. And we are everything progressive, but if single payer healthcare is, or Medicare for all is an issue that you believe in heavily, I would urge you to check out SPAN Ohio. And on our website and in our newsletter, we have links to them. And I see some SPAN Ohio members, but correct me if I'm wrong, SPAN Ohio members, you guys would gladly take in new members, correct? So what they're going to talk about is something that they're like trying to initiate. It's a good thing in the city of Cleveland. And I noticed Ward 13 Councilman Chris Harsh is with us. So Chris, please pay attention to what Amber Akhter from SPAN Ohio has to say. Amber.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me. My name is Amber. I'm a student at Case Western Reserve University in Cleveland, and I started in the early onset of 2021 getting Medicare for All resolutions passed at the local level. It's a national movement that has been going on, and it's to get city councils to pass local resolutions for Medicare for All. They're non-binding resolutions, but the whole idea of this is to say that this city council supports Medicare for all, and the goal is to have every city council pass them. So in March of 2021, I had Cleveland Heights City Council unanimously pass a resolution in support of Medicare for all. Toledo has done one as well, in addition to Lakewood. And right now I'm focusing on Cleveland City Council to pass a resolution for Medicare for all. So at the end of November, I spoke at their city council meeting, giving public comment about Medicare for all. And now what I'm focusing on is having people in the community reach out to their council members to tell them to support Medicare for all. And so I see a question, the difference between Medicare for all and the current system. Okay, so for Medicare for all, which is single payer, what that would do is have comprehensive health coverage for every single American, regardless of your socioeconomic background. And that includes dental and vision. Right now, Medicare exists if you're 65 and up, and there's also Medicaid, but you have to qualify for those programs. Medicare for all would give health insurance for every single American. And especially with COVID, it's a very pressing issue right now, seeing as our healthcare infrastructure has been crumbling. So having these city councils pass these resolutions is really important if we want to get this passed on a national scale. So what I'm working on with Span Ohio is to get it passed in Cleveland, like I said, and that has to be done by meeting with city council members, letting them know that this is an issue you support, and hopefully I can get this passed within the next 6 months. And yes, it's very important to call it Medicare for all. There are other terms such as universal health care, but for this movement, it's being called Medicare for all. And if you go on, if you search in Google Medicare for all resolutions, a link should pop up and it'll show you a map of the United States, and it actually will show you what city councils around the country have passed it. So yeah.
Does anybody have their hand raised with a
No.
question for Amber?
Nope. Oh,
Okay,
there we
thank
go.
you, Amber.
Wait, Steve, we just got a question. Tom?
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, I just wondered why they don't have hearing as part of the Medicare for all.
So are you asking, is hearing included in Medicare for all?
Yes.
To my knowledge, the one that is was introduced into the US Senate has dental, vision, and hearing. But in the resolutions that are being passed in City Council, for example, in Lakewood, they did include hearing in that resolution under comprehensive coverage. So I do understand that's obviously a big concern. So when I would have Cleveland, hopefully when Cleveland can pass this resolution, that would be within the resolution outlining what it's going to cover.
Steve, we have one more question. Go ahead, Bob.
Just to let everybody know, if you're interested in getting involved, Amber's contact information will be in the email that Steve sends out tomorrow. And I'm going to also send you the link in case people want to hear Amber at the City Council in November.
Bob, could you send that link to me and I'll put it in the email as well. Anything else?
I have one more question.
Go ahead, Tom.
I wonder, does anyone figure out how it's going to be paid for and what it's going to cost?
Yeah, so that's obviously a big question that comes up. I'm going to have actually Bob send a slideshow that I had shared that includes, it goes over everything for Medicare for all, how it's going to be paid for, the importance of it, all the concrete statistics surrounding it. So I don't want to give out any wrong information because I don't have it off the top of my head, but I will have that provided in what Steve sends out to everyone, all the information regarding Medicare for all.
Tom, we have had, meetings in the past focusing on Medicare for all, and we haven't had one in a while, so we may have one in the near future. And there's a lot to get into. Let's just put it like that. And we've got some labor people here to talk about the city of Cleveland. So, it would be good if we could move on, if I could say that politely. All right, let's get to the main part of the program tonight. And I want to introduce Bobby Mendel, who is the business manager of Laborers 860. He and Deb are going to kind of explain what's going on in Cleveland.
Go ahead, Bobby.
Okay, good evening, everyone. My name is Bobby Mendel. I am the business representative for Laborers Local 860. We represent a little over 400 members throughout the city of Cleveland. A lot of them are supervisors and most of them are labor workforce who do the essential services throughout the city of Cleveland, from trash pickup to certain aspects of snow plowing, to leaf pickup, pothole repair, resurfacing, building maintenance out the airport. And so we've been in negotiations since, I would say May, June of 2022. We've had about at least 9 or 10 sessions with the negotiating team that Mayor Bibb has put together for the city of Cleveland. And through those negotiations, we haven't really made much leeway. The city started off offering our employees a 3% raise over 3 years, which was below what they had offered other departments and other unions throughout the city. Our last meeting in November, they brought it up to a 6% increase over the 3 years. But that is nowhere near what the Bibb administration offered public safety, which is fire, police, and EMS. They got 11% increase over 3 years. Their first year was a 7% increase with a 5% equity adjustment on their salary. During past negotiations, we usually receive the same kind of contract that public safety puts in place. This time around, the city is saying they're in financial, they have financial issues, and that outside of public safety, they cannot afford to give everybody else the same kind of adjustment that we all think we deserve. They did offer it to a water department over there, the machinist, and they also got the 11% increase along with public safety. And so our last meeting that we had for negotiations in November, they had put us on hold. We are working together with Teamsters 507, and they went to fact finder, and they will get the result from the fact finding January 18th of this month. And then they will determine whether they will go to their members and determine what the membership would like to do. Would they like to settle on this 222 and $1,000 bonus, or would they like to fight for better wages and be treated equally amongst the other unions and possibly go on strike, which will affect the city residents and a lot of the services that both 507 and 860 provide throughout the city. Both unions, we feel that during the COVID pandemic, we were considered essential and critical at that time. A lot of our members couldn't take off. Our waste collectors, for example, they were out there picking up trash at households who had COVID, and a lot of our members contracted COVID, and we had a few members pass away from it. And, they applauded us and thought we were very essential and critical at that point. And now it comes to negotiations, and now we're treated as not equal to everybody else. So, the sad thing is, with the economy that we have now, we know that everybody's at 8% inflation. And for most members that we represent in Local 860, a 2% increase in 1 year comes down to 42 cents an hour. And so for us asking the extra 5% equity bump that the public safety forces got, in reality, it comes down to $1.40. We don't think that's asking much. It doesn't seem like a lot, but it's something better than what they're offering now. And so there's been many times where we've tried to reach out to Mayor Bibb. He has basically stated that he doesn't get involved in negotiations. He has his own team to handle those things. And we feel that, you know, it's the same kind of negotiation tactics that the previous administration has had, Mayor Jackson and so forth. And we're not getting anywhere. And so as it approaches in a couple of weeks to a month, there's a possibility that 507 Teamsters, the truck drivers who, you know, work together with our members, 860, will go on strike, and it will affect a lot of services throughout the city. Residents will not be able to get probably down their side streets, EMS, post offices, Amazon, whoever. You won't be able to get out of your driveway. I mean, right now, the city does a poor effort trying to get your side streets up anyways, let alone, you know, us avoiding trying to go on strike. Now, that's not our ultimate goal. We don't want to go on strike. We're trying to negotiate, but the city has put us on a hold. They will not come to the table with any kind of offer other than the initial offer at 222. And so, you know, we've had many protests. Well, I wouldn't say they were protests, but they were like informational protests to get it out to the membership, to get it out to the members, saying that, you know, if they can reach out to council or if they can reach out to the mayor to show how important it is. You know, in the mayor's eyes, I guess a garbage man is not as equally as important, and his services doesn't matter as a police officer or a fireman. It's, you know, but, you know, they're all important services. We feel that every entity throughout the city is important. I know I wouldn't want my trash not picked up, and or the streets being repaired, and I have to go to an auto repair shop because I damaged my front end of my car. But these are a lot of the services that will be impacted if, you know, there's a strike in the future. So, you know, unfortunately, you know, we would love to sit down with the mayor. You know, the funny thing is that when he became mayor, he had a lot of gatherings and says he was for the labor workforce and the unions, and he's had several fundraisers over the last couple months, and was up there standing and, you know, at the podium saying he was very supportive of unions and labor force and would like to do anything as possible to work together. And, you know, we just haven't seen it. And so it's very disappointing that, you know, it's come down to this where, you know, our employees are only worth 40 cents an hour. So, you know, not sure if anybody has any questions or whatever, but that's where we're at with negotiations.
So if I could just add, for those of you that do not know, many of you do that are on, I'm also, my day job is the director of Cleveland Jobs with Justice. And for the last year, we have been trying to do a campaign for essential workers. Because as Bobby said, these are the workers that had to continue going to work every day. Some of them have got sick. I know one worker in particular who is a janitor out at the airport got COVID 3 times. Another worker who works at one of the police districts as a janitor, his parents were elderly. The parents were not going out during COVID. And he probably took COVID home to his father, who ended up dying. So not only did it endanger the worker themselves, but it also endangered their family members and people close to them. So we joined forces with the unions. because overall, instead of just getting a one-time payment as a bonus for the essential workers, this will be accumulative. If we get the 722, the workers will end up still getting raises on the raise that they get initially. So in the long run, they're going to come out ahead much better than they would if they just got a one-time payment. So the other thing is that I've already talked to one of the other unions, and they have said that they will not cross the picket line, because even if it's just 860 and 570 that they go on strike, the other unions hopefully will show their solidarity and not go to work either, unless they're ordered to by a judge. So it's going to affect all of our services. And I think we just, as a community, those of you from Cleveland, make those phone calls, and most importantly is support this strike, because this is about the workers. And we keep hearing about how the city has money for this pet project and that pet project. And one of my favorite ones to always talk about is the $12 million bailout of Shaker Square, but they won't invest in their workers. And without their workers, we don't have a city that's functioning. So it's take care of your workers. And so now we have a couple of questions, but first there was one in the chat from Eliza, I'm sorry. If we had less garbage to pick up for less frequent pickups, would it give our public workers more time to do other projects such as fill potholes? And yeah, public safety vehicles can't get anywhere without the snow plows. Bobby, you want to take that?
Okay, what was the question? Okay, I see it.
I think what she's asking, and I think, Aliza, just so that you know, we're dealing with different unions in different sectors. So the garbage people are represented by one union, or actually two unions. So they wouldn't be like going and doing other jobs because of the different contracts.
Yeah, we have different contracts. So without the drivers and the labor workforce, 507 and 860 work hand in hand together. Without the drivers, our union cannot jump into their role and drive the truck. Okay, we'd be working outside the contract, even if our members had a CDL. It would be out of their job description. It would be an issue. So we are giving 507 full support that we will not cross the picket line, and we will support them during the strike if they go on strike.
And then the other thing that I just totally forgot about until we started talking about this, the city has already reached out to other cities to see if they would lend the city of Cleveland their snowplow drivers if there is a strike. So that's already been happening. And a good thing is that all the cities are telling them no, because a lot of the cities are represented by the same unions. So, but
they're short-staffed as well.
Yep.
So.
And we have two questions. Go ahead, Eric.
Okay, I'll put my camera on to be sociable here. One quick one, which but I think is that I have two questions. One is kind of in the weeds. One quick one is just, are there any issues other than just wages? Because I really think that's one thing in terms of strikes that the public has really supported and everything. If there's been some more basic issue, safety or something. Obviously the need for money is totally legitimate. Of course you need a wage, and of course it should keep up with inflation. But I was it just seemed like, to communicate it might be better if you could explain if there are other issues, or maybe there aren't any other, but I'd be surprised at that. The other question I have, so I was wondering if it comes to the point of a strike. It's like I said, it's a little in the weeds, but given that this is sort of, these are public services and blah, 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 is there any sort of power or, labor law or something that, that could come in the way it did with, the way the railroad workers were essentially forced to take their deal by the government, or, like us, when I was a little kid, the whole Patco thing happened. Is there some sort of federal thing like that? I mean, I hope there isn't, but I was just wondering if you guys have looked into that.
No, I haven't. As far as the contract, we pretty much got everything summed up besides the wages. So everything else is taken care of. It's the wages that are put on hold due to the fact that the city is saying they don't have the money financially. They first initially offered the 722. It was a 222 increase, and they gave the police force a 5% equity bump to adjust their salaries because they had a hard time attracting police cadets. They wanted to bring up their salary. They were one of the lowest paid. So during our first negotiations, they told us, well, only the police department is going to get this deal. Well, then EMS got it, and then the fire department got it, and then the water department got it. So, they went from not having any money to offering it to certain other unions. And, like I said, in the past, we've all gotten the same thing, but this year during negotiations, and we've been, our contract expired on March 31st of 2022, even though, we're still trying to negotiate this one. It's going on a year almost. And, but like you said, the question, everything else is taken care of besides wages. Wages is the holdup.
And the one thing also I'll add, I don't know if you saw us, Eric, but Nora and I were both shaking our heads no when you were asking whether or not the same thing that happened to the rail workers could happen to these workers. The only order that can be made is a judge ordering the workers back to work. And I'm talking about the other unions that aren't on strike, that are just showing solidarity and not crossing the picket lines. And go ahead, Nora.
Thanks. My hand's still up. Well, I am a Clevelander, and I'm really incredibly proud that you guys are standing up for a fair contract. So I think my question is a couple parts. The first is the question of solidarity. I think it's really encouraging that you've banded together with some of the other locals. Just a question, just in terms of strategy, have the folks that have settled contracts been able to sort of stand with you all or make public signs of support that they want to see workers with the other bargaining units win fair contracts as well?
Yes, we've gotten support from the police department.
Okay, great. And then I think the question for those of us that live in the city, do you have any tools for those of us, window signs or anything else that we, for residents that stand for a fair contract? Because I think those can be useful tools in terms of having conversations with our neighbors and at least showing some public support in different neighborhoods across the city, especially as folks are delivering. It can be helpful also, I think, for the people performing the services to see that folks that live here are supporting them too. So I didn't know if there were any tools for those of us that live in the city.
As far as signs, I don't believe there is, unless 507 has made some.
Okay.
But it just, we've shown support, and we've had people support us through council meetings, and just different informational protests that we've had, one at City Hall, one at the airport.
Okay.
And just reaching out to different people. And
then,
let them know to let their council know, or anybody that they know, that our services are just as important as others, and
for
that,
sure,
you should treat us fairly.
And that was, I guess, my next question. In addition to reaching out to the administration, do you want us to engage with our members of council as well? Would that be helpful?
Yes, for sure.
Okay. And then I think the last question I had,
Nora, if I could back up to your question about what we could do as a community. 507 does have the signs that we had at the protest that says "Stop the War on Workers." I was fortunate enough to bring one home. It's in my window on my front door. So I've been talking to 507 to try to get a stack of those signs. And if we do, we'll let people know and so that we can get them out to people in the neighborhoods, because it would be not only to show our solidarity, but I think it would also be uplifting for the workers. As a matter of fact, last week I actually was around when the garbage truck came through, so I thanked them and then pointed to the sign so that they knew that I was supporting them. So I'll let you know.
And no, thanks. The last question I had was concerning, like I feel like every contract I ever bargained when I was, worked in the labor movement, the employer never had the money. So like, it's not unique, but I do think in this particular instance, with it being, a public sector employer, if the city's suggesting it doesn't have money to pay workers for a fair contract, one that actually keeps up. I mean, without these kind of wage bumps, people will fall behind based on inflation. But, there are some really significant plans about redevelopment down on the river and on the lakefront and a potential new stadium. Is the city committing that they're not going to be investing in those, or are they going to be spending significant resources and on these development deals and fail to pay workers fairly, right? Like, I think, has there been any discussion about, like, if there isn't the resources, does that mean that they're not going to be making these other investments then, right? Or giveaways rather?
Yeah. Well, it goes where the priorities are, I guess. You start at the top like a pyramid and everybody's top heavy and gets third part of the deal. And then the workers are at the bottom and, you don't have a strong foundation, then it's just going to crumble. I don't know. I did a little news thing with Ed Gallick last week talking about the airport before that storm, and we were a little worried about the lack of workers out at the airport. And the sad thing is that the city only has 4 city trucks out there, and they're short-staffed, a large amount of people. And instead of increasing the wages out at the airport, where a normal person only makes 20, 21 bucks an hour, the city has contracted out to a private company to do their own snow plowing out there at the airport. And it's costing them millions of dollars. If you would take that millions of dollars and increase the wages by 5, 10 bucks out at the city airport, you would get more attractive people to go out there and apply for these positions, and invest in our own city vehicles. But, the city is in financial need, but they have money to spend for millions of dollars for a private company to take care of the snow plowing out at the airport. So it's just mind-boggling. I guess it's just priorities. What's important? We feel that we're not important anymore. And we do feel like they have the resources, they do have the money, but it's what they want to spend it on. And right now, it's not, the city workers of the city of Cleveland.
Go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, I just want to ask Bobby to correct something that maybe I'm wrong about. Hasn't past practice in negotiation with the various unions been that everybody gets the same compensation and that you get more, you get less? Is that correct?
No, you are correct. Usually public safety goes first. They set the tone for everybody else, and what they receive, we all receive. This year, it's different. For this year, he said only the police department gets that deal, but then everybody else got it in public safety and so forth in the water department. But the workers for garbage, the other workers for the drivers, we can't offer you that. We can only offer you a 222 with $1,000 bonus. So you're right, past practice, we've all gotten the same. This administration is saying the city is in financial need. They're $60 million in debt due to the income tax and other issues, and they don't have the money this year. So.
And for those of you that don't know the ins and outs of negotiations, past practice, although not legally binding, has always been understood as precedent that is followed in current and future negotiations.
Correct.
Okay, our next question comes from Michael Dover.
Hi, thank you, Bobby. Just one of the question I'm going to ask you is if you can tell us a little bit more about comparable salaries in other cities for the workers covered here, the drivers and the sanitation workers, because I know this is an issue for police, and maybe that's one of the arguments that the mayor's using. but I'm wondering about that, I'm surrounded by Cleveland. I'm in Bracknell, so
Yeah.
I'm totally surrounded, not really a suburb, but, for the suburbs and certainly for Bracknell, if this is not settled and the work isn't being done properly, it's going to pile up pretty quick. It's going to be an issue. And, as Deb said, then the courts can get involved. Someone mentioned the railway workers. I just want to sort of say that, anytime you make a settlement, whether it's in the unions, I used to work with faculty unions and other kinds of unions and social agencies and stuff. Or, in the end, if you settle, there's always going to be people saying you stalled out, or they're going to criticize city council members for voting for the contract. How could you vote for this contract because it's such a terrible contract? And that's happened with the railroad workers. I know a number of people very well who are very closely involved in talking to the railroad workers and their union leaders and their rank and file groups. And what you're hearing about this is really not as accurate as that ought to be. So, I mean, you're in a difficult position, and we need to, real solidarity doesn't mean just undermining you and second guessing you. But the other thing is, Monday's Martin Luther King Day, right? When he was killed, he was leading a march of sanitation workers, so now we just had a fireman killed on the street, right outside Bracknell. The people who are in the streets, including sanitation workers, drivers, and everybody else, aren't they at risk? I mean, I know you're saying that the non-wage issues have been addressed, but my second question would be, what can you tell us about the kinds of dangers that people really have, in this kind of work? Because maybe that could build solidarity with people who don't normally think about, solidarity with sanitation workers.
I mean, waste collection alone this year, we've had one individual actually two individuals were working behind a truck on Memphis Avenue on the west side of Cleveland. And a pedestrian was driving her vehicle and she was distracted because she was on her phone. And she slammed in the back of the worker and pinned him against the back of the truck and her car. And she was so emotionally shocked that they were screaming at her to put it in reverse and get the pressure off of him. And she just kept flooring it and pinning him even more. Luckily, she came to her senses and got the vehicle off this individual. And this is a main street that they have to pick up on Memphis Avenue. And these are some of the dangers. Lucky for him that, yes, he had some fractures of his hip and everything. He survived and he's still not back to work. He's doing rehab, but it's very dangerous out there. A couple of years ago, we had an individual shot out there while a person walked up to him and shot him in the head while his coworker was working side by side. People get angry, when you're stopping traffic or you have signs, there's road work ahead, they're impatient. People go around them and, point guns at them, swear at them. I would say it's very dangerous. So the other question you asked is, are wages comparable to other wages in the suburbs? Our wages are way below the wages in the suburbs. We, over the last couple negotiations, they were been small deals, like a 1%, 2%. I think one year we got a 3%. But, the cost of healthcare has also went up as well. So the members never really saw an increase in their paycheck. But, it's just, whether all aspects. I mean, we've had snowplow drivers, accidentally, being involved in a motor vehicle accident with another car, and the snowplow itself, damaged the car and is injured people because, members, pedestrians out there driving on these roads want to go around the snowplow truck or cut them off when they're going at a 35 miles an hour down a main street. So, we're always watching, trying to be careful, trying to have, the construction signs out there, the flaggers if possible. We have members at night doing the potholes because we know that's a big issue in the winter time, which could be very dangerous. We've had a couple incidents where, our members were out there and people slammed in the back of the truck because of distraction or, inebriated. So yeah, it's dangerous out there for sure.
So we have another comment from Aliza about contacting the media, and the media has been all over this. The Scene wrote an article. Signal Cleveland has written an article. There was stuff on the television stations at the time of the protest. I don't know. You don't want to call it a protest, Bobby?
Informational meeting.
Informational picket, I guess.
Yeah, informational picket or
with two big rats and a fat cat blown up. So that was kind of cool. But just all you have to do is go Google it and you'll see all the media hits. And I think Steve, CCPC put it out in the newsletter too, right?
Oh, yes, we did.
Yeah, did you say signal.com?
Yes, Signal.
Yeah,
Cleveland.
yeah, Mark Namick, yeah.
Yep. And I
Yeah.
think Mark is getting ready to do a column on this, is what I heard.
Yes. And everybody knows that Ed Gallick's been all over it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, Bobby, I just want to say, it seems like I looked at the long range forecast, and it seems like the climate change gods are going to be with us for the first part of January, and it's going to be warm. But if we had a nice blizzard, I think that might help in your negotiations.
It'd be, good timing. But we never know, usually February, we usually get something, but it's still going to affect the services, whether it be trash sitting out there for a week or, the pothole repair is not getting done. It's still going to affect things because you're going to have the freezing, cold temperatures, the ice conditions, and those are all things that these members take care of 24/7 during this time of year. So, yeah.
No other questions, Steve? Oh, wait.
I want to call.
Steve, we have one, sorry. Just as I said
good.
that, a question popped up in the chat from Chris Harsh. What's the annual difference between the increase they're offering and the increase you want?
It's a 5%.
It's the equity raise, right?
It's the 5% equity raise the first year.
The
A
dollar-
dollar amount, that would be, for most people, sad to say, that would be $1.40 an hour. I wouldn't know the cost of the city on that.
We have one more question. Wait, Steve, we have one from Michael Dover.
Yes.
Go ahead.
And Bobby, maybe you mentioned this before, but it's so frustrating to see all this huge amount of money that's been coming from the state and federal government filtering through for COVID relief and all these other kinds of bills that are coming through here. Couldn't some of that have been used to not only just to sort of compensate the workers for all the stuff that's gone on, and how much of that money, if any, went to the workers in your unions?
We haven't seen any of it. We haven't seen any departments with new equipment, new vehicles. We haven't seen any, anything given back to the departments. Hiring new people, we're short-staffed. We haven't seen any of that. We've seen, talks of council and the mayor, what they want to do with this $500 million. economic businesses, lead abatement programs, giving Wi-Fi, free Wi-Fi to broadband, all that stuff. I've seen it in the news. I don't know if they've done it yet, but we haven't seen any talks about giving back to the city workers as far as, upgrading their equipment, hiring more staffing, and increasing wages. We haven't seen any of that. I mean, we have vehicles that are in the 1970s we're still driving, rusted out. And, everybody knows that the mayor just bought 3-4 brand new Ford Expeditions, 7-passenger vehicle vans for his staff. I mean, when you're sitting here and you're a supervisor in one of these departments driving a rusty vehicle and, got a lot of mechanical issues, and you see this money spent, for the staff driving Expeditions and increasing that. It's just, I just don't understand it. Are we broke or are we not, So yeah, it's frustrating.
Anything else? Okay, a couple things in closing. I think Nora Kelley is still with us, and we did not have a membership meeting in December. So let's give Nora and the rest of Guardians for Fair Work a round of applause for getting a wage theft ordinance passed in the city of Cleveland. It never happened before. It passed at, I think, December 5th city council meeting. So if you could, let's kind of do this to the Guardians for Fair Work, or do it in the chat. A couple things about the program tonight. First of all, you may recall that in the event description that we had Dan Chavez from Teamsters 507. Dan had to cancel at the last second because he was busy preparing for negotiations on this. So, that's how, intense it's become. And I want to touch on something that Nora said earlier. Think back, this is in the early years of our organization's existence, because we were a part of this. When the Cavs came calling for renovations to Quicken Loans Arena, there weren't, as Bobby described, financial issues for the $144 million they contributed. When the Guardians came calling 2 years ago, there weren't financial issues for the stadium upgrades, which have little or nothing to do with attendance, because fans come if the team's good, they don't if the team's bad. And now the Browns are calling it the corporate welfare trust. And the Browns, well, yes, we have to have renovations, but you'll notice last week after the blizzard, they floated the idea of a $2 billion dome stadium. And how much of that will the city of Cleveland have to pay? And I'll bet you they won't tell Jimmy Haslam no, because there are, quote, financial issues, unquote. And stay tuned. CCPC is working on this, and we're not going to be silent when this comes about. But please leave this meeting with that thought in mind. If hundreds of millions of dollars can go to billionaire sports owners who could pay for renovations themselves, then why can't we pay our workers a fair wage? Thanks for coming tonight, folks. Hope we can see you all at our fundraiser celebration on January 20th. And take care.